Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of our first time homebuyer Southern California housing market update. My name is Stephen Mead. I'm with Domicile Real Estate. We are on a mission to help California's renters become homeowners. Again, this is our market update that is specifically tailored towards the entry level of the market, where we talk about pricing and availability of homes. You might have noticed that we missed you last week. The numbers are always really a bit skewed when we have a big holiday week like that. So they don't always tell, honestly, really a great story or an actionable story where it's information you can actually use. Also, we have another t-shirt this week. I'll go ahead and scroll down here so you guys can see. It is for Nakatomi Plaza. And Nakatomi Plaza is a real building in Century City, California, but the name is not real, but the building actually exists. It is from the best Christmas movie of all time, which is, of course, the original Die Hard. And if you disagree whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not, please do not put anything in the comments. Anyhow, let me begin. We put in here the description that this is going to be a December to remember, and I truly believe that. I don't think I've ever seen anything really quite like this. Let's go into our stats, and I'm going to tell you why. So let's start off with home price. It's not terribly unusual to see a little bit of a home price acceleration right at the end of the year. Most years it actually turns down a little bit, but both in our single family homes and our condos, look at this number. We're actually, it cut off, but it's a 659 is our statistic. Now remember, this is home prices, which means these are the transactions that were negotiated a month ago. I actually think our market is even farther forward than that. We've had a few weeks of, frankly, just really crazy absorption rates, low inventory. That generally equals higher prices. I will not be surprised to see a month from now we are talking about these numbers being even higher. So that's kind of the bad news if you're a home buyer, right? Is that these prices are continuing to accelerate. I don't see any reason why you will get a break anytime soon or in the foreseeable future. But if we go over here and we look at our monthly payment, the great news is it really isn't all bad. If you're on the entry-level single-family home front, you'll see that the payment did jump quite a bit to $36.22. Remember, this is based on a 5% down payment for that entry-level single-family home. And this is a total payment including estimates for insurance and property taxes. The great news is that $36.22 number is really only marginally higher than 2018's June number of $35.95. So, I mean, really, we are still at June of 2018 prices for single family homes. So great news if you're a home buyer. And then on the condo front, it's actually even a little bit better. You know, if we look back there, we were at $28.99 over 2 years ago, and today we're at $27.20, about a $180 discount. So, I mean, I think the bad news is prices are going up. The good news is interest rates are still low, and our payments are actually not really going up. In fact, they are still about the same or less in the case of condos than they were over 2 years ago. And if you add in inflation, you could argue that even staying the same actually means it's a price reduction. So whenever people talk, someone asked the question, when do you think, Stephen, when do you think the market correction is going to happen? And my answer is, well, it's already happened to some degree because we have payments that are actually at 2018 prices. That's actually a drop. Payments have dropped for the median home in the last 12 months. In fact, really the last 9 months, as we've been in this kind of COVID kind of scenario. So, if that's what you're curious about, I think the prices actually already have dropped to some degree, or rather the payments have dropped, even if prices appear to be on the rise. And then finally, we have kind of our little minimum household income. I like this. This kind of frames things in mind. If you are looking at an entry-level single-family home, the minimum income you need in your household with no other debts to afford that home, that's $659 for our entry-level single-family home. It is $88,712 of income. And down here for the condos, it is $66,623. I think what I like about this is it means that homeownership is possible for people. And again, our condo figure is based on a 2-bedroom, 2-bath hypothetical condo. So these aren't studio condos, these are actual real condos. Maybe even if you have a roommate, that sort of eases your income situation a bit. And now we're going to move on to our availability of homes, because I think that's really the story, and it really has been the story of 2020. The affordability is great, but it's remained fairly constant throughout the year. As interest rates have dropped, prices have gone up, and it's really equated to a payment that has been very similar the whole year. I think where the story is when we're talking about the availability of housing, and that's something that really is taking kind of an interesting change, over the last few months, especially. So, to go to our first statistic here for availability of housing, this is our absorption rate of new listings. And, this graph is really fun, especially the comments that I made at the beginning of this. And that comment was that we didn't do an episode last week because those statistics were really skewed. And for the single family, boy, were they ever skewed. So we actually had an absorption rate last week that went off the charts. It was actually about 132%. And that's because during a holiday week, we frequently find that very, very few people put their homes on the market, especially people that may have larger families, such families that would occupy single family homes in general. So we just had a huge run. But I think the real story is where we've ended up, both for condos, which have been steadily rising, and single families, which have been steadily rising. You'll notice that we have an absorption rate that is frankly right about 100%. This is still what I put into the hyper competitive, inventory constrained market. It means for every new home that went on the market, a home went into escrow. That's just nuts, people. That's just not really something that's sustainable. Anything over 90% is what I consider a hyper competitive market. You'll notice, maybe about a month ago, things were a bit easier if you're in that condo range. You'll see down here into the 70s. These are brisk markets, but not hyper competitive. But it's steadily risen, and here we are. The market is really absorbing almost every new listing that comes on. And what's funny is if you dive into the data, and we don't break it down here, but absorption rate is really two statistics. It's the number of things that came onto the market and the number of things that went into escrow, right? So we break that down in our main whole market update. But here we kind of abbreviate it. What's interesting is, yes, the number of new escrows has fallen. It just is not falling as fast as the number of new properties coming onto the market, meaning the buyers are still there, but the sellers are starting to say, it's the holiday time and we don't want to put our house on the market and be inconvenienced. And that's resulting in these sort of hyper absorption rates. And we're seeing that in the market. When you go to negotiate right now, chances are, if it is a house that is at all desirable, you will be facing multiple bids. And that's really just a reality of the market. And I don't see that changing in the immediate future. And it's interesting because normally my advice to buyers is that this is my absolute favorite time of the year to buy a house. And the reason why is because you have less competition. And while it is true you technically have a little less competition, you also have way fewer listings. And we are in an inventory constrained market. I do think the number of new listings will jump in the new year, but my fear is so will the number of buyers. I don't know if it'll really change the competitiveness of our marketplace. So if you've been a buyer sitting on the sidelines and you're trying to wait for that perfect time of year to buy a house, I'm afraid that in 2020 and probably 2021, there really just isn't a perfect time of year. They're all very competitive markets that you will find yourself in. So jumping back, one of the other things we started tracking was our inventory, our total inventory over time. And, I think this really tells that story, right? If you look, where were we, back here around October, gosh, we were over 1,800 available units for both single family homes and for entry-level condos. But if you look back here, look where we are for our entry-level condos. We've taken quite a dive, but boy, look what's happened for our single family homes. I mean, from a nearly 1,900 high down to under 1,500, which is where this is in the graph. I mean, that is just a drastic reduction of inventory in, frankly, a month and a half. I mean, this really indicates exactly how competitive this market is. So if you've been looking on various websites and you just feel like there's not a lot out there, it's not a feeling. the data really supports that as well. Now, if we look at our weeks supply of homes, that doesn't look quite as dire, right? Like we definitely see those weeks supply tightening, but it's not dropping the way inventory is. And again, that's because we also have a reduction in the number of buyers that we are seeing, as well as a reduction in the number of sellers. It's just that the reduction in sellers is moving a bit faster. So we are seeing that tighten. We've almost lost a week of inventory from our high here for condos. We were at 9.5 weeks. Now we're at 8.5 weeks supply of homes. And then if we look here for our single family, that's remained more constant, but still we are under 4 weeks. That really means there's not a lot of inventory out there. Anyhow, that's pretty much it for us this week. Obviously, we would love to help you if you are a first-time home buyer or look for somebody who maybe owned a home a little while ago, but is a new to the market again home buyer. We'd love to work with you. It's our specialty. Also, do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you're watching us on YouTube. We love your comments and questions, so please do keep them coming. And we will see you later for our, oh, I almost forgot. We have started a podcast as well. Expect that to show up on our YouTube channel and other social media next week. We recorded already. It is with a lender, sort of asking some of the tough questions that maybe you were curious about. And we will have that up next week as well. Obviously, we'd love to work with you. Questions, comments, we love them. We will see you again soon.